Hello everybody, it's Dr. Butch again. Today I'm going to go over the abstract and the introduction section of your proposal in hopes that this will help you as you start to develop your own proposal. Although the abstract is not required in the rubric area, I do think it's a good idea to have an abstract only because I think it kind of sets your paper up and it summarizes your paper, and it also kind of keeps you in check. And if you'll notice here in this example, you start off with explaining what type of study you have and why you are conducting the study. In this case, it says the purpose of this qualitative study is to determine whether it is more effective for high school students with mild to moderate learning disabilities to learn music in a resource room setting or in a school band rehearsal with their typical peers. Now, I'm not going to go into the specifics of this content that much. It's just to say that in this case, and I told you, a lot of the examples I use are not perfect. I'm not looking for perfect because I think this is a learning tool for you. But whenever you use the word effective, a lot of times that indicates that you're looking at quantitative because you're trying to prove if something is more effective. And she may have spelled this incorrectly and used an A instead. But she goes over the length of time. She also goes over the students that she'll be using, just the basics of how she will carry out the study. And having said that, in this initial section here, in your abstract, you may not be able to conduct this research. It will depend on, how long the term is, if you're actually able to do it, because research is not something that you can do overnight. I know some of you have submitted some work on things that you're already starting to do in your own school and classroom. In that case, you may have some results. But I feel like most of you will only be able to give an idea in this proposal of what you think may happen. And that's perfectly fine. And this would be the section in the abstract where you would include what you expect to happen, or if you're able to complete it, what did happen, just some basics of your results. And I hate to make you dizzy, but let me go back here real quick because I noticed this in some of your short papers. Remember here, and it's not that big of a deal, but it is APA, so you do need to include a running head. The mistake she made here is this should be lowercase. Running is capitalized. This should be lowercase, and then all caps here. That's correct. And then on all other pages, you're going to leave off the two words running head altogether, and you're just going to include the name of your paper, and you're going to include it in all caps. Okay, the introduction. The purpose of the introduction is to give some kind of background, introduction and background to your subject. In this case, you should have indented here. The abstract you do not indent. It should only be one, short to medium-sized paragraph, and it will not be indented. The abstract will not, but the introduction and background should. All other paragraphs should be indented. But she's giving a brief introduction to her topic. And here, you don't have to give stats. You don't want to quote specific studies that are helping to make the case, for whatever question you're looking at. You can give statistics like, 3% of the population such as a specialized center only represents 3% of the population of students with disabilities. That's fine. You know, that is a stat, but you're not giving statistics from the study. You're only giving information and background, just introducing the reader to your subject. Because remember, when people read your papers and your proposals, these are going to be, you know, lay people. This is action research. So you should help them understand your topic here. Help give a background and the importance of it. You know, why is it important? Why are you looking at this topic? And then your research questions. Now here it says the following research questions were developed in order to address the hypothesis. What would your hypothesis be? And you can, you know, I'm not requiring that you include a hypothesis singled out in this area, but it would be nice to include here the following research questions were developed in order to address the hypothesis that students with disabilities will show a higher rate of blah, blah, blah. But hear this. You will only have a hypothesis if you are using quantitative research, that you are trying to prove something. If you are conducting qualitative, you are only looking at trends. You know, you're looking deeper into the subject matter. You're not trying to prove anything. And that's also when you look at your research questions. Ooh, Brigadier General, who is that? Okay, the following research questions were developed. Is inclusion effective for students with disabilities? Again, the word effective indicates that this could be quantitative. It is not. It's a qualitative study. So maybe this one should be eliminated. Also, I think this is way too many questions. Is music inclusion effective for students with disabilities? So these are both very broad, and when you're trying to conclude if something is effective or not, that is quantitative. You know, you're trying to prove, but this is just so very broad. You know, how do you prove that it's effective? You know, it's very broad in nature. Now these are definitely could be used as qualitative. What perceptions do band directors and typical students have about musical inclusion of students with special needs? Excellent. She could take students with special needs, put them in a regular music classroom, and then interview the students, observe them. That's definitely quantitative, but not, I'm sorry, that is definitely qualitative. Quantitative means you're trying to measure. The how and what questions, and I believe I've said this before, the how and the what questions are usually qualitative. Variables. You will only have variables if if you're using quantitative research. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about variables, and I may say that until we go a little deeper, but let me just say for now that if you have quantitative, you'll definitely have variables. If you have qualitative, you will not. Quantitative, the independent variable is the variable that's independent. It's usually the variable that you will manipulate. The dependent variable is the variable that may change based on that independent variable. So it's dependent on what happens to this other variable, if that makes sense. And this is pointed out nicely here where it says the variable that comes first and influences or predicts is called the independent variable. The second variable is the one that is affected or predicted by the independent variable. And that is in your textbook on page 39. So I think that's all I'm going to say for now about variables. We'll go into a little more detail, and in the next video that I provide for you on your proposal, I'll go back and revisit those variables and just, make sure we get everything cleared up in that area. But hopefully this gives you something to work on. I think the smart thing to do would be to, you know, fill in as much as you can as you're going through this term. Keep that template that I gave you the first week and start to fill in different sections. But I think it's going to be easiest for you after you read my feedback from that milestone 1 of where I think your study will be going, what questions are good, what type of study I think it is. I think it's going to be easier for you to go back and start filling in the research questions, providing the background, creating your abstract. You've got the type of study, what you're looking at. I think that'll take care of that one section for you, and it kind of takes a lot of pressure off of you just to get started. In this previous research, we'll go over that in depth next time. But just know, if you run across these as you're looking up literature and different, articles on your subject, that this will be the area where you actually use studies that were conducted on your topic, and you'll use those stats to kind of help prove your point and help prove your research data and what it shows. So I will say bye for now, and please email if you have any questions, and I will talk to you soon.